Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pulse Pod. Third time lucky recording this. We're now recording this on Sunday after a few um, problems beforehand. But joining me today is Adam. Hello, Adam. How are we today?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, not too bad at all. Like I said, there's been a few issues between recordings, but we've got there eventually, and we are here now. One of those problems, obviously, being the postponement yesterday of the game at Barnet. So we've been without a game now for 2 Saturdays, which I'm going to assume, as for everyone, has been very boring and not too much has happened. So in terms of today's episodes, I thought it might be a good idea to go through the squad, have a look at each individual player and the season that they've had. We'll give them a rating out of 10. And if anyone has any comments or even disagreements, feel free to comment on whichever social media you've found us through today. So, looking at the goalkeepers first, Joel Dixon obviously hasn't played that much. I feel it's a bit unfair to give him a grade as of this moment, because he's had his ACL problem since the end of August. But a quick word on how he started the season, given that he was up for sale at the start of the season, and there was a lot of rumours about his future. He started pretty well, didn't he?
He did. He did. I was really impressed with what I saw in pre-season. He was steady away, and that just kind of nicely transitioned into the league. He was steady away, made a good impression early doors, and it was just really, really unfortunate when he was getting into his stride when he obviously got that nasty ACL injury. It just, for him, it came at the wrong time, unfortunately, and I am very much looking forward to the fact that he's on the cusp of hopefully being soon in contention for the team.
And it's cutting into the next bit slightly, but when he comes back, would you start him like when he's fit? I wouldn't say start him straight away because it's a long-term injury, it takes time, but would you start him again when he gets back?
When he's able to start, without doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, I think Young was hit and miss. Smith, okay, but I think at the moment, with what I've seen from them two, I would definitely have no hesitation in my mind to start Joel.
Moving on to, as you say, we'll start with Brad Young first because he came in on loan from Leicester. He did start at the beginning of his tenure, at the beginning of Lenny's tenure as well, when he came in. Um, Hit and miss. I mean, we've spoken about him before on this podcast. Um, how do you think he would? How do you think he would fare in the Rains?
I am going to go. I'm debating between a 5 or a 6 out of 10. I mean, I don't think he's done anything like drastically like, oh my goodness gracious me. Do you know what I mean? I've never once watched him in a game and thought immediately after he should be dropped. But in the same breath, I don't think I looked on the face of it when he joined and I thought, you know what? Having spent years at Leicester, seemingly they've got a good setup. I thought, yeah, could be a good move, but I just don't think he's been, from my own personal point of view, he hasn't been what I expected. So I would say 5, 6 out of 10 for Brad.
Yeah, I think it's probably about right. I mean, the ones that come into my head, Solihull away. Obviously, we won the game, so
Mm.
scrutiny over that. It was a little bit less because we did win the game. And whenever you win the game, anything defensive wise is sort of glossed over because at the end of the day, we got 3 points. But I do seem to remember both keepers in that game were very suspect, to put it lightly. And then the game at York as well, because I was in Portugal for that one. I was watching it on my phone while I was going around the city, and I remember he wasn't the best in that game. I would say to point out the rest of the defense went didn't exactly cover themselves in glory either, conceding 5 goals. Um, but I did remember he was a little bit iffy. He was okay afterwards, to be fair. So yeah, I think probably 5 or 6 is about right. Moving on to the other, Adam Smith. He's been here since the start of the season. He didn't get too many starts, given that Joel Dixon's form, as we've discussed, and then Brad Young coming in as well. He started certainly for the last month or so. Pulled off an excellent save against Oldham on New Year's Day. How would you rate his start?
Um, I think respectfully, I'd go something similar, maybe a 6 out of 10. He did make a good save on New Year's Day. He's one of those players, when I watch him, the way he handles situations, he doesn't give me the most. huge amount of confidence. I'll be brutally honest, which is why I'm inclined to say when Joel does come back into contention and when he is able to maybe, put himself forward for a start, then I would have no hesitation in doing that. Obviously, he's taken on obviously the coaching role now alongside his obviously player role. Yeah, I think I'd say 6 out of 10.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, he's recently, we should say, signed a contract to the end of next season, for the next 18 months. And I think there's a good bit of stability there, given that he is a coach as well. It provides something for the long term, as opposed to 6 month deals every 6 months. Yeah, I'd say it's six, potentially seven. I think, again, as with a lot of keepers we've had recently, he did start quite shakily, if you like. There were a couple of ricks in there, but as I say, he's grown into it the more he started, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when Dixon does come back. Moving on to the defence, and we'll start at right back. We've got Dan Dodds, first of all. In and out, as with most of the players here, he did have a red card as well, so he did spend a bit of time out. But how would you rate his season?
Obviously, it was great to have him back from that nasty injury. It was a welcome return. Would I say he's been the Doddsy of old? Truthfully, I'd say no. But obviously, with any injury like that, it's going to take time to fully get back to those levels that he set for himself in seasons gone by. I'd maybe say a 7 out of 10.
Seven, interesting. I've gone for a six personally. I think it's unfair again because, as you say, he's come back from a long term injury, and anyone who comes back from a long term injury, as we've seen before, it takes a bit of time to get used to the thrust of the game, etc. He's I don't think he's been up to his previous level yet, and I say
Agreed.
that as a huge fan of his. I've got his Poppy shirt from last season, still, so he's he's a big fan in my eyes. However, I think he's still got a bit to go, especially when you consider that it he didn't come straight back in because Sharon had such good form out of position in at right back. They didn't seem sort of fussed about putting Dodge straight back in, which I think was a detriment to him for his position. But to be fair, there's still a long way to go, and he's shown a bit of improvement recently, so we'll see how that goes. David Ferguson on the left hand side. I think he's the Featherstone of defence. He does split opinion quite a lot in the fan base this season, as he has for previous seasons. So what do you think about Ferguson?
Yeah, interesting one. This is one of the interesting ones. I think if I look at the season as a whole, I think going to the start of the season under Sal, I thought he was shocking. I did, and I'm not going to just scapegoat him because there was other individuals as well. It's not just about like picking out 10 individuals and like going in on them. He was poor, really poor, and obviously there was a lot of cries from the fans to, basically look at bringing to an end his time at Pools. But in fairness to him, in credit to him, I think he's been able to get through that patch of bad form. Obviously, we've transitioned now under Lenny Lawrence, Anthony Limbrick, Gav Skelton, and I think he has somewhat returned to a good patch of form. I thought his Oldham performance on New Year's Day went under the radar somewhat. I thought he had a fantastic game, and I think he's revitalised himself under the new management ship. So hopefully that can continue. So I would maybe say, do I go 5 or 6? I'll go 6.
I've said it to balance it out. Yeah, I've went for six because I think that start of the season you mentioned, I think it's been balanced out because he has grown into the season quite a lot, and I think six is probably about right. I would say. I don't think it can be any more than that. He's got one goal this season, we must add, at York, I think it was. Um, but in terms of defence, he has grown into it after a bad start. So I think that's about right. The centre backs, we've got Tom Parks. We'll start with first. Just my opinion, I think he's been the standout defender of the season.
Agreed. And I am actually debating, do I go 10? Because it's those sort of numbers we're looking at. I think at the very least it's a 9. You've said yourself, standout defender of the season, and arguably he's one of the player of the season so far. Absolute colossus at the back. He is a class act. He does what he does best. I'll go 9.
I've put 9 personally. I think, as I said, standout defender. I think you're looking at potentially him, the likes of Sharon, as sort of the player of the season so far. He's been absolutely superb in defence. Red card, but again, so is everyone else this season, so you can't really
Yeah.
put him down for that on its own. He's scored once this season as well. He just seems to be everywhere, and I think when he's fit. And to be fair, I don't think he's been out that much other than that suspension. I don't think he's been injured that much this season. He elevates that defence so much. And it's that experience that we got from him and Waterfall, who we'll come on to shortly. It's that experience when we signed them that we instantly thought they have the experience and it'll help us going
Yeah.
forward to try and get promotion. So, it's good signs for that. We'll say move on to Waterfall. Um, mm, if you compare him to Parks, Waterfall has been slightly less impressive, shall we say. I think, to be fair to him, as with Ferguson, I think he's grown into the season quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because again, at the start of the season, those two red cards, like fairly quickly between each other, they really dented the fans' confidence in him. But as I say, he has grown into the season, I think.
Yeah, without doubt. I was quite shocked actually. I don't know if it was an effect of certain individuals, a certain manager behind the scenes. You saw quite a different pools in the first half of the season. For the first time in a long time, we were trying to do the dark arts of football, but I kind of felt like he was elevating that to another level. He was just doing things off the ball where I just think, well, for someone of your stature and experience, you've been around long enough, you know what you get away with and what you don't get away with. And some of the things I saw him do, I'm just like, really? I'm like, I was shocked because it was him. Do you know what I mean? If you're young, if you're just like in your first couple of years of your, senior career, I can maybe understand it. But from someone from him, it was just mind blown. But I kind of feel like since the transition again into the new management, he's someone who's settled down. He's got himself back into the game, and like you've said, him and Park to the foundation of that defence. They are giving us that defensive platform. They're going to give us what we need to succeed at the back, and hopefully allow us to do what we need to do going forward in the final third. But I would definitely say again potentially a 6.
I've gone for 7 just because I think before that red card happened, you mentioned the dark arts, and I think for a long time we've been too soft on the pitch. I've always thought
Yeah.
like it. I mean, you can go too far, as sort of that September time proved quite a bit. But I think at the start of the season he was absolutely rock solid before that red card. So I think he deserves credit for that. I think once those red cards happened, it went downhill. But then he has the game picked up, I think. So I think on average, I think a 7's probably about. So I think he's been a better defensive presence than David Ferguson has for the majority of the season. And
Yeah.
because I've put Ferguson as a 6, I think I'm happy with the 7 for himself. The other centre back is Billy Sass Davis, in and out of the team. There's a lot of positivity in pre-season about him. He had some very good performances in the friendlies. And when Waterfall or Parks have been suspended, he's jumped in. And I think he's been quite seamless in jumping in as well.
Yeah. This is a bit of a funny one. Like you say, made a good impression in pre-season. I remember going to South Shields, watched him there, and everybody was like, sign him, give him the contract," and we did. And he looked good every time that he was called upon. I thought he was faultless. He did what he had to, but then it seemingly just feels like since that York game where it's unfortunate, it happens in football. He hasn't deliberately meant to make that mistake, but he's made that mistake. He's obviously stepped forward into space. The ball's gone over him. They've scored. I don't know. He's just found himself in a bit of a rocky patch. He had that game, and I can't remember what game he played after that, and he wasn't great. I thought again he was a little bit rocky. And now like I say, you don't really see sight or sound of him now, do you? Obviously, Waterfall and Parks obviously solidified themselves in the team. It's just a bit unfortunate with the way it's panned out with obviously with Billy Sass.
And the number? I'm not letting you get away without a number for any of these. Put your neck on
Um,
the block.
5.
It's interesting that because I've put a 7. And the
Oh,
reason why I've gone for a 7, because I think made a good point there that obviously after that game, he hasn't really played as much as we'd like. But I think when he has played, other than that one mistake, I think he's been very good. And you do need that sort of presence behind the main two, where when they come in, you can rely on them to do pretty well. because you need
Yeah.
more than two centre backs in a squad. However, I will caveat this by saying, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, obviously you've been to a lot more games than I have this season because of my working commitments, etc. So, your opinion probably bears more weight than mine in terms of you've seen a lot more football than I have. So I will admit that before we go any further, because I think that's quite fair to mention. Um, I'm taking these squads off the Pools app, so I'm running through them as we go. The next few we haven't really seen play this season for one reason or another. We've got the likes of Louis Stevenson, Campbell Darcy, and Manny Onarise as well, all of whom have been on loan at various points, etc. Louis Stevenson, I think we should mention just quickly, on loan at Whitby, got man of the match in his first appearance, I think, as well. Is it surprising that he hasn't been given more of a chance this season?
Yeah, I think it sparks a question, especially when you've had Dodds, who's obviously he had that suspension for 3 games, and I just thought, given how influential, how good he is, Nathan Sheron, in that natural position of being in midfield, I just thought, wow, it might bring about an opportunity for Stevenson, but it just didn't. It just didn't, and obviously he's had a bit of a turbulent season. Obviously made a bit of an impression last season when he came in at certain points. He probably thought that was going to be a platform for this season, but such is football. For some reason, it just hasn't been. Obviously, like I say, on loan at Whitby, got his man of the match. So, yeah, bit of a bizarre one, actually.
I'll be interested to see what happens when he comes back in as well. Moving on to the midfield now. The first name on that list is Kieran Wallace, who we've barely seen play this season. I think it'd be unfair to give him a number. Jack Hunter, we'll move on to. Started the season very well. Scored the winner at Yeovil on the opening day, then got sent off at Woking, and then got injured, and we've barely seen him since. I think is about the summary of his time at Poole so far. It's a shame, really, because when he came in, we were getting the reviews from Halifax that if we could keep him fit, he'd be a very good player for us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. I thought in the early part of the season, he made an impression alongside Nathan Sheron. Everything was seemingly going okay up until that point where we went to Woking, which, in fairness to him, bank holiday Mondays in August and Pools just don't go hand in hand. I think that's just a.
We should never play Bank Holiday August ever again.
I agree. I think it should just be banned. There should
That's
be
two
just.
seasons. That's 2 seasons in a row now. We went 2-0 up, bottled it, lost 3-2, and had some sort of suspension or injury that's ruined it all for us.
There should be some sort of mandatory law made by
Mm.
government where Pools just can't play. But obviously up until that point, it was reckless from him. You know, he got the yellow card, and then very quickly after, I mean, when you do things like that, you give a referee a choice, and with it being so soon after, the timing didn't help, and we just struggled. And you knew once Woking got 1 goal back, another was going to come, and once you got two, it was telling. It was pretty telling. Obviously, after that, you know, someone who's played like I think 40 odd games for like a couple of consecutive seasons, sadly got an injury, and then Feverson comes in, and Feverson's, you know, it's just been a bit of a tough one from him all round when you get injured and then you're having to really fight your way back in to get a foothold in the 11. So I would say I'd go 6 out of 10.
I think 6 is the most that you can give him, to be fair. I think that's simply because of the appearances, the injury, etc. I
Yeah,
went for a 5. It feels a bit harsh to go for a 5, but I think given that he hasn't played that much since
yeah.
since he got injured, I think personally I can't see, um, I can't give him any more than that, I don't think. But I think 6 is okay as well. I wouldn't think there. Next on the list, we've got Stephen Poxon's favourite player. If he's listening, I'm sure he'll understand why I'm saying that. Monsieur Mancini, Anthony Mancini. Um, quite frankly, if he was playing every week and he was fit every week, I think we'd have been promoted by now. But unfortunately, as we've mentioned, for Bank Holiday Thursdays, it was his injury last season that ruined us quite quickly, unfortunately. He's shown flashes this season. If you look at the game against Oldham that we played last, um, he was outstanding, in my opinion. I thought he was excellent. He ran the game, scored the winner. That little touch to get past the defender was superb. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because, as I say, he has had his moments, and then unfortunately he does sort of either drift and he has to be substituted, which is understandable given his fitness issues, or he just doesn't play, particularly in the start of the season when we had Darren Sarll.
Yeah, it is an interesting conversation to have. I mean, we all know what he's about. We all know what he's got in the locker. I always feel like when you watch him, you know if he's in one of those moods. And if he's in one of those moods, a bit like New Year's Day, you know what could happen. And we saw it when he got that goal, the build-up play. It was a well-crafted goal. But I kind of feel like, there's him and there's a couple of others where I kind of feel like it's all or nothing. You either get everything or you get nothing. And with Mancini, when you get nothing, it is pretty dismal. I think at times he tries too much, things get forced. Um, it's been a tough season for him. It's been a surprising season, like you've alluded to. There's been a lot of time spent on the bench where he can't get in, and it's been Campbell in the 10, it's been Gray and Charman out wide. I just feel like if you're not playing in the 10, then I kind of feel like out wide in those on either on the right side, the left side, I don't feel he's as good. He's not as effective. Again, I'd be inclined to say 6 out of 10. I don't. I feel like with the appearance has been limited. He hasn't been the most consistent player this season. I mean, he's had his moments. I went to Boston away. We'll go down 1-0 at half time. He comes on in the second half. We win. Tamworth away. We're getting beat. He comes on. He changes the game. We win. So I'd say 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm deliberately not saying what I've gone for first, just so that I'm not influencing any opinions. I've I was and ahhing between 6 and 7 because I think, as you say, again, there's a cap on a 7. I think because of the appearances and because of the amount of time spent out. I went for a 7 eventually, just because
Hmm.
it. I think his impact on games when he has made the impact, I think, has changed games. I think that's the difference between from what I've said before about players where they haven't played that much and we've had to cap it. I think his impact on games has been so good that he does drive the team forward. He's only scored twice this season, and that should really improve given the quality we know he has. But I think, as we've said, like the impact he has on games. He scored the winner against Oldham. You mentioned Boston away as well, where he basically changed the game completely when he came off the bench.
Yeah.
He does have that in him. If you remember the game against Tamworth as well, the trophy. I know we didn't win it eventually, but he was probably the best player on the pitch on that game. He was given the chance. He hadn't been in the team that much. He was given the chance, and he basically ran the game. And it wasn't down to him that we lost. In the end, it was down to apparently no one being able to take a penalty. Honestly, I'll never live that one down. I mean, we were stood in the mill house, and everyone had ran round from the town end to come and see the penalties because they were being taken at the rink end. And honestly, the despair, I've never seen anything like it in a penalty shootout. It was hilarious because every time a penalty was taken, we're just like, oh, every time it was. I mean, I don't know what Medine was doing. Like, how far over the bar did it go?
I mean, we've said Pools and Bank Holiday Mondays in August don't go hand in hand. I think Pools and penalty shootouts don't go hand in hand. I absolutely dread Pools and penalty shootouts. It's just
It's
such a.
how did we win the playoff final?
I-
That feels like the only penalty shootout. And to be fair, even then we missed our first two. We tried our best, but
was
obviously
there the first
Torquay
four we
weren't up for
missed?
it either. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'll take never having a penalty ever again. Yeah, but getting back to Mancini, as I say, I think in that game, in many other games, I think he's ran the show, and I think when he does perform, he performs to an extent that I think 7's probably about warranted, but I can
Yeah.
understand the 6 as well. Moving on to one of the players of the season, as we've mentioned with Tom Parks already. I think you can quite easily put Nathan Sheron in that list as well. He's been absolutely brilliant for us.
Yeah, I absolutely love the bloke. He's been signing of the season, and arguably he's going to be up there challenging with Parksy at the moment for player of the season. He's just so good at what he does. He's the midfielder I think we've been crying out for a very, very long time. Whether people agree or not, you could see it as the future kind of replacement for Fevs. If we keep all the Hunter long term, then naturally you're going to see that midfield evolve into Featherstone, into Sharon,
To,
and
to be fair to Featherstone, he probably will still be here when he's 45. I'd imagine he'll probably be starting in 10 years' time still, the weather he's gone.
well, I wouldn't say that in front of my dad, like, but yeah, who knows, mate? Who knows? He is the man. But no, Sharon's been fantastic. Whether that's been in midfield, at right back, the standards have never dropped. He's everywhere, challenges everything, everyone. there's just not a bad word to say about him, really.
The fact that he moved into right back, obviously as emergency cover, but then kept his place at right back because he was doing so well is testament to how
Without
versatile
doubt.
he is and how good he's been. And again, you haven't given me a number.
Well, I'm going to say, I mean, I'm not. I'll say 9.
Understandable given that we've given Parks a 9, I've given Sharon a 10 because quite frankly
Ooh.
this podcast will soon become the Pulse Pod sponsored by Nathan Sharon. Or the Pulse Pod will sponsor Nathan Sharon, if it comes to that. But quite frankly, I do think he's been outstanding.
He has. He's
And in
very good.
fairness, I do think it's difficult because as you said, Parks has been excellent as well. I think I think Sharon just edges it mainly because of the versatility, because Sharon's shown that little extra where he's had to move to
Yeah.
right back and he's done that job. It's hard to say flawlessly because no one's flawless, but he's done it in a way that you haven't really noticed the absence of Dodds, and he's kept the
No.
place when Dodds has come back. Also, Parks did get sent off, and that does sully his tally a little bit. But yeah, he's the only thing I would say for Sharon, and again, it's not his primary objective, but he has only got one goal this season. So I would say if
Mm.
anything's to improve for Sharon, he could provide that presence a little bit further forward. But we'll see. I mean, like you
We
say,
can
he
work
has
on that.
deputised at right back, so at the same time, there is a balance there as well, isn't there? Moving on, we've got Greg Sloggett next. He's I, I don't understand because when he first came in, obviously that European experience, with who was he at? Was it an Irish club or a Welsh club? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
If you
It's
keep
Irish,
talking,
wasn't it?
I'll have a look.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was Irish.
Uh,
Because he is Irish, isn't he? Yeah, but he came in with that promise, and we said, oh, he's got European experience. He's going to provide, something in the midfield, and unfortunately, just hasn't worked for him, has it?
no. He was at Derry City in 2019, January 2019, and then later that year he moved to Dundalk. For
Dundalk have European pedigree. Yeah, they've
yeah,
been qualifiers and etc. Yeah, so that's probably where it is.
Football League
But
moved to Cheltenham February 24, and then obviously Pools. But
I say
yeah,
I don't
again,
think Cheltenham have ever been in the Europa League. I think we can discount that one.
you're not kidding.
No offense to Cheltenham, but I don't think they have. Yeah, but yeah, it hasn't worked for him.
No, it hasn't. We all kind of looked at it and thought, oh, could he be another certain Irish midfielder, so to speak? But it's been underwhelming. Was he brought in by Sal?
He will have been, yes, because Sal joined us sort of not long after the season finished, didn't it? Because there was a whole thing with Kevin Phillips. So anything brought in the summer will have been Darren
Darren
Sal.
Sal. Yeah, I hate giving numbers as low as I'm going to, but you've got to look at potentially a 1, a 2. His appearances have been massively limited. There's been times this season where I've actually forgot about him. It's only because you read the team sheet at 2 o'clock, you go, oh, it's Sloggett. But no, it's just been a underwhelming signing so far, and long term, you don't see a future from at Pool, sadly. As awful as it is to say, unless he can somehow get a foothold in the 11 and make a huge impact, but not good at all.
Let the record show that Adam has just given a player a 1 out of 10, as compared to everyone else. Yeah, I mean, you are right. He's unfortunately just hasn't worked. When I've seen him in person, the comments I've been getting from people around us, slow, a touch, his first touch isn't the best. I don't know, he just seems to struggle to get up to the pace of the game. And unfortunately, as we've said, the likes of Nicky Featherstone, who we'll come on to next, Nathan Sharon, these players have just nailed down a starting position, and he's been shunted aside. I did have a 3 out of 10. Obviously, you've undercut me there slightly, but he can't. It can't be a high number, unfortunately. It can't be what we'd like to see from given the season he's had. I've already mentioned Nicky Featherstone. We'll move on to Nicky Featherstone. I think I can't believe the renaissance, if you like, because he's been just that steady presence he's been for the last sort of however many years. But we've noticed it more this season just because he is always there, and he doesn't ever seem to put a foot wrong. Like, you know how you see in higher divisions when people are messing around in possession and they
Mm.
pass it backwards and they do all that stuff. I'm not saying Nicky Featherstone hasn't done that, but he very rarely misplaces a pass, and that is a very good quality to have in any division.
he's been the one constant. He's been the one constant in he just seemingly ages like a fine wine. I mean, you know me dad. You sit near me dad, and I've had many debates with me dad regarding Nicky Featherstone. I mean, I've said to him numerous times, I think you just lose objectiveness. You do. He's not that bad. He's not that. I love the bloke. I absolutely love him. He, I believe, does the things that I think people quite often don't appreciate, and he goes about his business. He never shies away from wanting the ball. He never, shies away from wanting to be in possession. And like you say, he's neat. He's tidy. A good eye, a good football brain on him. Even at his grand age now of what, 35, 36, we came into this summer, we had Hunter, we had Sharon. We all looked at that and thought, could this be the final end of Featherstone? Could this be the transition into the future? And could we see more Sharon and Hunter this year? And
At which
at the
point
fir-
your dad would probably hold the party.
yeah,
Still
yeah.
even do. Yeah.
Um, and at the first opportunity, when Featherstone is called upon to come in, when obviously Hunter was suspended, and then obviously the injury, straight away he's like, "Well, I'm not going anywhere." Do you know what I mean? And for me, he could go on for at least another season. Whether he does or not remains to be seen. But he is, for me, he's a legend. I'm going to say a solid 7.
I've gone 8 because I think we've rated Man. Well, I mean, I've rated Mancini a 7. I'm going off my ratings here. I've rated Mancini a 7, Waterfall a 7. I think he's been above those. And to be fair, I don't think he's gone as far as Parks. He's been excellent. But I don't think he's been that level. I think, as you say, he's just been that consistent presence in the midfield, keeping things ticking
Yeah.
over. He hasn't really done anything wrong. So I think an 8 for my ratings is probably about right. Um, but yeah, that brings to an end the midfield. It does have Rashawn Matherin on there. He's just gone back to Crystal Palace. Um, we won't give him a rating, but a quick word on him. He started very, very well. The bits that he showed in his first game or two, where he took the ball, it may well have been because we were starved of attacking play, because we hadn't seen much of it. We were very defensive at the time, but he took the ball, he ran at players, he looked good, and unfortunately, he just never really nailed down a start. I don't think it helped him the all of the stuff around Darren Sarll, because when that all kicked off, he he never really seemed to get a look in. And I don't think you can really expect a lone player to produce miracles when that sort of thing's happening in the background. And unfortunately, Lenny Lawrence clearly didn't see enough in him to start him, which is a shame for him. But we'll move on to the forwards. The first one on the list here is Gary Medine, number 9. He, to be fair, it was one of those, wasn't it? He came in, the the big grandstanding around him was, former player, former Blackpool, former of a lot of clubs in the Championship, etc. It took him a bit of time to get up to speed. To be fair, he had been out with a long-term injury, as a lot of our players have been. To be fair, now that I think about it, um, he scored 5 since he's come in. Since that first goal he scored, which that interview afterwards was a very good watch as well. If anyone hasn't seen that yet, um, he seems to have found a place in the side.
It's an interesting one, this, because when I watched a couple of his first appearances, I immediately looked at him, and you shouldn't do it because, as we all know in football, time is key. But I looked at him after a first couple and thought, he's crap. You know what I mean? I just thought it was another kind of player who's had a good career at, high levels, who's obviously come here, and I just thought, we've done this before, we've seen it before. But in fairness to what you've said, he's came to Pools on the back of, I think, an ACL. I could be wrong, but I think since time obviously has moved on, I kind of feel like every game he's got better. He's got goals. I mean, how he's claimed the one against Tamworth, I don't know. Just to put it out there, I am sorry, Gary,
Oh,
if you do listen to
it's
the
it's
Pools
fine.
pod.
Honestly, we've had this before.
I mean, fair play, do you know what I mean? But no, I think he's got better as each game's went on. The fantastic goal he scored at Gateshead, whether he meant it or not, was a great goal. I remember saying to the lads next to me, as soon as he left his boot, I went, "It's going in, it's going in."
I think to
Like,
balance out your comment about him claiming the one against Tamworth, I think we should say that he definitely meant the one against Gateshead.
yeah, deal. Um, I thought Oldham New his day. He had a great game. The little flick-ons, the little bits of link-up play. He's got better. He's steady away. He's something different. He's a presence. I would say 6 out of 10.
I think, yeah, I think the run that he's been on recently obviously elevated his season to this point because the season to this point has virtually been non-existent because of his fitness issues. I think 6 is probably about right, but if he cracks on now, I mean that front two that he formed with Manny D on New Year's Day, we've called for it before, and I think we have played it once before New Year's Day, and I don't think it particularly worked that well. But that might have been because Gary Medine was still coming back with his fitness issues. So I think the signs there, if he can form that partnership with Manny D, the possibilities look very promising, shall we say. Moving on, we've got Adam Campbell next. Very unfortunate, the injury that he picked up, especially because it's always a bit of a shame when you're about to come up against a former club of yours, and unfortunately something keeps you out. Because you can imagine he'd have been wanting to make his mark on that game at Gateshead. But a season of two halves, if you like, I think, from my
Yeah.
point of view. He started off. I mean, to be fair, you can ignore the friendlies if you like. I think the friendlies he showed promise against obviously lower ranked teams. The start of the season when he was with Darren Sall, I don't think he was particularly effective.
No.
He was certainly, I don't know if I'd say off the pace, but he just didn't seem to be in the games really. It was bypassing him quite a lot because of the long balls. Um, he sort of picked up and then managed to put together something of a run of form under Lenny Lawrence. He scored 3 goals this season. That first one coming against Brackley, which nearly saved Darren Sall's job. Very nearly. I mean, obviously, 3 days later didn't really help his case, but um, I mean that was a good finish. To be fair to him, if you remember it, he hit it so well. Even if it was from inside the box, it was one of those where you thought, where has that been all season? And he seems to have gotten better over the season as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you look at the first half of the season under Sarr, I don't think you can blame Adam Campbell personally, and be saying he didn't do this or he didn't do that. I think when the ball's like so far up in the air, people like Adam Campbell aren't going to have that desired effect on games. It's no coincidence when obviously Lenny took over, and obviously then Limerick and Skelton. It's football. It's been on the floor. He can get a foothold in the game. He can have that desired effect. I went to Solihull that game where we won 4-3, and I thought he was outstanding. By far his best game in the pool shares.
Agreed.
Um, him and Sharman had a fantastic game, and I just think for me, he just seemingly was coming into a good patch of form, and then the injury, which, like you say, is unfortunate. It's not where he wanted, it's not what we wanted, but we know what he's about. We've seen it, we've seen glimpses of it. So I'm hoping when he comes back, he can just hit the ground running and refine himself. Um, I seem to be giving a lot of sixes, but I think I can't bring myself to give a seven. I think I would, given the way the first half of the season started, I think I'd have to go a 6.
I've gone for 6 as well, just because of the two halves thing. I think if he'd scored more goals in his run of form, like if he got up to 5 or 6, I think I'd have put a 7. But I think because he still only scored 3 goals, and because of the first half of the season, whether it's his fault, obviously we are giving him a bit of leniency because of the style of football. But I think 6 is again probably the most that I would give Campbell personally, just because of the way the season's gone. And we should say as well, again, very unfortunate about his injury and just when he was coming into a run of form as well. So hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later. Moving on to Luke Charman, who you've just mentioned there about the Solihull game. He's another one again where I don't think the tactics helped him in the first bit of the season. And again, I think he has found something a little bit extra since Lenny Lawrence has come in. He's
Yeah,
another one really, again, because he's gotten injured, which seems to be a common theme, particularly with the forwards players. He hasn't been able to build up that run or build on that run, I should say, that he had.
I think when I listen to people who talk and when I read things on social media, I think he's someone who divides opinion. Obviously, the first half of the season, you saw promise, but then it's all good and well showing promise. But when you are playing that far forward, you do need to see more. You do need to see the attacking contributions. And I just thought he was going to be one of those players who, you know, works hard, gives it all, but maybe, not contributing as much as he should. But it's like you've said, since the transition, we've seen another version of him. That game against Solihull got 3 assists, just nicely going along. Do you know what I mean? Getting better and better. I like him. I like him, Luke Charman. Grafter. Um, he's got it in him. He's got it in him. Obviously, injuries don't help. Obviously, he missed the last game due to personal reasons, which obviously can't be helped. I'm going to say, I'm going to say 7. I'll put my neck on the line.
See, I've done the opposite this time. I've stuck with a 6 because I'm not entirely sure it can be any more than 6. He scored twice, which again, I don't think I wouldn't expect like a 15 goal season from someone playing on the right wing because he's not Mo Salah, no one is. But again, I would have liked to have seen more from him from a finishing point of view. You
Yeah.
mentioned that Solihull game again. I think he got 3 assists that game. He was excellent in that game. If he produced that, he doesn't have to produce that every game because that is 3 assists every game is very difficult. As it goes without saying. But I think if he produced it a little bit more, he would be going up. And I do like him as a player because I think he is quite direct at times. But I just think at the moment he just needs to step up that next level for me anyway. But I'm not against the 7. I don't think he's been bad per se. Um, I think you can say that about a lot of the players. To be fair, even the ones we've been through already, that first bit of the season, the tactics, the manager, clearly it wasn't a happy place to play at the start of the season. And we move on to Joe Gray. I, to be fair, with this one, I won't say anything now because I'll let you start first because I think it'll be interesting to hear.
I love Joe Gray, but I feel a little bit about Joe Gray the same way I do about Mancini, in the sense that I kind of feel like it's all or nothing with Joe Gray. We know what he's about. Took his goal very well at Gateshead. I remember being at that game at Woking, and I thought he was electrifying. I think was it his first goal? Did he score once or twice at Woking?
I think he scored twice in 10 minutes, didn't he? I think
Yeah,
that was the two. That was the 2-0 lead we had, and I think he scored twice.
yeah. But both his goals were very well taken. Have you got his numbers goals wise for the
I,
season?
I do. He
How
scored
many?
six. He scored 6 goals. He's the second top scorer.
Obviously, Manny Z being on 10.
Oh, really? Because I've counted 11 for Manny D.
Is that all comps?
Yeah,
Ah, well,
all of
right.
these are all comps.
So Joe's 6 in all comps.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think he scored in any other competition, Joe Gray. I
Ah,
think
so,
they're all
so it's
league
just six.
goals because Gary Medine scored in the trophy, and his that was the obviously the only trophy game we've had, and the FA Cup. It was Adam Campbell in the first game, and Manny D scored a penalty in the second game, and I don't think there was any other goals.
Hmm. I think he's
So
very
all
hit
of
and
Joe
miss.
Gray's will have been the league.
I think he's very hit and miss, Joe Gray. I'm gonna go 7.
I've put a
I,
7.
I don't think I can look at an 8 or even potentially any high because I don't think he's been that good. In my personal opinion.
Yeah. I was umming and ahhing over a 7 and an 8. And the reason why I was thinking potentially an 8 is because he is obviously playing on the left-hand side, which isn't his natural position. He's still got 6 goals. And he still works very, very hard every game. And again, I've always said even if the quality's not there, I'm not necessarily talking about Joe Gray, but even if the quality's not there, if you're putting in 100% every game, that's all you
Hmm.
can ask from a player. And because he's been putting in that effort, he's got the goals. Because I've been saying already, with certain players, goals you need to put goals into the side. He has put the goals into the side, and he's playing out of position on the left. In the end, as you mentioned, I think there are times where you would like a little bit more from a product, from like a quality wise
Mm.
perspective. But yeah, I think 7. I've went for 7. But again, if he produces even sort of in the next few weeks, say he gets like say 3 goals in the next 4 games, it'd probably go up to an 8 because I do think he's been very good this season, despite the tactics. And next up, the fan favourite, Manny D. Manny Desiree, off you go. I don't feel like I need to say much for this one.
No, we know what Manny D's about. Obviously, getting 25 in all comps last season. You've said he's on 11 this season, all comps.
Yes.
I think he's had a very, very tough season in the sense of you saw the way we were playing under Sal for those couple of months. I just kind of feel like we weren't getting the best out of Manny D. I thought at times he was stranded. He was having to work extremely hard. I know that might sound bizarre, but for a striker, I think he was having to work like way too hard. I think things have improved now from a service point of view, from a team point of view. Obviously, since that transition, we're seeing obviously Manny D in positions. We're seeing him get the service that he probably should be getting. I don't think he's had his best season from his own standards. I don't. That's just my opinion. I think there's a lot more to Manny D. I'm trying to think of a number here. Do you know? I'm going to say seven. That's probably me putting my neck on the line again, but I'm going to say 7 out of 10.
I knew you'd say seven. I had a hunch you'd say seven. I've gone for eight purely because he is the top scorer. He is the top
No,
scorer
no,
of the
that's fair enough.
season.
You know what I mean? He's doing what he has to.
And not
11
only
goals.
that, where you've mentioned that he was working hard, obviously in the first bit of the season, I think that is to his credit because despite basically playing the first half of the season, if you like, despite playing the Sal era basically with no one within 30 yards of him and having to take down all those long balls every week.
Yeah.
And despite having to do all of that until mid October, he's still got 11 goals in all competitions this season. I think that's to his immense credit, personally. I don't think I can go above an eight just because I don't think he's been as good as Parks and Sharon, who we've given nines. And obviously I've given Sharon a 10. But I think, to be fair, I can certainly see where he come from because, I think by his own standards, even though he has got 11 goals, I think he can still do better.
Yeah.
And that's very strange to say, given that he's got 11 goals, and we've still got probably about, well, it's not going to be half the season, is it? But I don't know how many games we've played. Have we played about 22, 23, 24,
I believe it's 25.
25? Yeah, so it's just less than half the season left. So, if he gets sort of 13, 14, I think he'll match his tally from last season, I think. 'Cause he got about 25 last season, didn't he?
It was 25 in all comps, so it might have
Yeah.
been, yeah.
Yeah, so probably so he's got 11 at the minute, so it's not out of the realm certainly. But yeah, I think from my point of view, I think eight. Um, but I can understand why you've gone for seven. And that's it for the player side of things. Um, a couple of others. There was Nathan Asimwe who's just signed for Walsall. Um, he's it's incredible, really, isn't it? Because a lot of the players that we get on loan, and it's happened for quite a few years now, there are players that don't really impress, whether they're not given the opportunity to impress or whether the playing people just aren't particularly fussed over their performances. And then they go and sign for, like, obviously Walsall are running away with the league in League Two. They're absolutely like miles ahead of everyone else. I think they're 13 points clear now or something like that, 14 points or something.
Won 5-1 yesterday.
Yeah, they did. Funnily enough, I mean that's because of all the games getting called off. That was my main spread. If anyone's buying the Football League paper, I shouldn't really be doing advertisements, but that double spread, that was, I worked on that. That was my job yesterday. But yeah, Walsall, they've been ridiculous this season, and the fact that Nathan Simway has went from us in one season to the runaway leaders of League Two, clearly they see something in him. It's
But,
bizarre, isn't it?
but for me, it begs the question, and like you've said, it happens time and time again. It's not just this season thing. It's not just a last season thing. It's been like a long, continuous thing. Why do we bring loan players in, not give them the opportunity, and then when it does come to January, we send them back? And then, like you say, you've seen a Simway go off to League Two, the runaway league leaders. I mean, I just don't understand it from my point of view. Surely you want to bring players in who can have the desired effect, who can come in, challenge for a place, and be given just a fair crack at the whip. You've seen it with Rashawn Matherin, came here with a lot of good reviews. I watched clips of him. He looked really technically very good. Doesn't really get a fair chance. Asimwe, his chances were here and there. You've saw with Bondswell this season, one appearance in the cup against Tamworth. Loa, albeit I think when he has appeared, I don't think he's made a desired impression. I don't think he's done anything to warrant like I should be starting next week. But we just
I,
seem
I
to
will. I must once again
go on.
stress that foul on New Year's Day was one of the best things I've ever seen on a football pitch.
Was that down by our side where he's basically just
Where he basically hugged someone's legs. Yeah, that was absolutely
yeah.
superb. Well, even if he never plays for the club again, and I wouldn't advocate, I'm not advocating for that, but even if he never plays for the club again, that memory will always be. I couldn't stop. Honestly, I couldn't stop laughing for about 5 minutes. It was hilarious.
That must be up there with the incident at Sheffield Wednesday. I didn't go, but obviously Fondop, Hillsborough, where he. Do you remember?
I do remember that. Yes, that was the was it the Pain Pot Trophy?
Yeah, yes. Where he's kind of like RKO'd, rugby tackled someone on the sideline. I don't know what he was doing in true Fondop fashion, but
Oh, honestly.
we know
To be
how to
fair,
get them,
to be
mate. We know how to
fair, mentioning Fondop as well. I know he didn't score on New Year's Day, but he's another example of one of those players that did absolutely nothing while he was here. He's gone off to another club and he's fit in beautifully.
I was saying this, I was talking to an Oldham fans in the corner flag, and we were talking about Fondop. I said, it's weird. I said, it's weird. We sometimes go through these spells where we have players like Fondop who, to be fair to the fans, I don't think he got that much stick considering. I think he got away lightly, but he looked crap. I mean, the one thing that'll probably spring from the memory will be the Blackpool game where he was 1-on-1. And I kind of feel like that was maybe for me the final nail in the coffin. But then, like you say, he goes to Oldham, he's scoring free kicks, overhead kicks. He looks like a world beater.
Honestly, it's ridiculous. I mean, you could you could say that about a lot of players, to be fair, that we've
Yeah,
had. I mean, we've discussed loan players particular, but like, a lot of players think, for example, I don't think Nicky Kabamba was necessarily a flop here because he did score a couple of goals, but he wasn't prolific. He's been excellent for Barnet, and now he's just moved to Bromley. Like again, it's another case of that. If I think the one reverse, as in like they've been not great at other clubs, but they've really clicked when they've come here, is Manny Desirue. Because that
yeah,
season that he had last season, I think that's by far his most prolific season he's ever had.
yeah.
With 25. And again, it's not that he hasn't scored goals elsewhere, but he's never been anywhere near as prolific for any other club as he has with us. And I think that's the only real example that I can think of off the top of my head where a player has come to us from other clubs and clicked with the club. Because it's usually the other way around, pretty much always.
It's interesting you say that though, but doesn't that almost certainly put pressure on Manny D because he's done something for the first time in his career? So does that almost raise the pressure that, he has to then try and do something that he's only done once before again this season?
Quite possibly, but I think the argument as well that you could play with last season is that the service into him, even though he got 25 goals, the service that he got wasn't particularly good. Because if you think about the season that we had last season, our midfield was virtually non-existent last season. I genuinely can't remember without looking what our midfield was last season. I can't remember the players in it. Other than obviously Featherstone, but he's playing at the base of the midfield, so it's a bit unfair to levy him with the service thing. I can't remember the creative players that we had in midfield last season. And the fact that now you're now going to your phone to have a look tells me that you can't either.
No, I can only remember
Like
Gray,
that says a lot, doesn't it? Because if
Mancini.
yeah, to be fair, Mancini, but obviously he got injured quite early on. But like it's
I'm really struggling.
yeah, like but that tells you something, doesn't it? Because if they were playing like Hollywood passes every week, or even if they were assisting every week, or they were grabbing a couple of goals themselves, we'd know straight away, wouldn't we? Like obviously next season, I'm gonna know Nathan Sharon straight away. Like as an example from this season, and obviously I'll know Featherstone.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you go to that final game of the season against Dorking, it was Featherstone, Crawford, Cook, Adjiaman, Disarue, Gray.
See, Crawford, Cook, and Adjumang, I couldn't have told you. And to be fair to Tom Crawford, I don't think he was necessarily a bad player, but he was just a very tidy player. He didn't really do much going forward. And obviously he's at Altrincham now. Callum Cook's still without a club.
Well,
If I'm right in saying that, I think I am because I've not seen it anywhere. Because usually the Facebook group, obviously you know about the Facebook group, like when things happen, it gets posted in there about 50 times. So I genuinely can't remember.
we've obviously had other
Like
players as well. Like
there, yeah.
we had the delights of Shea Cooper. We had the delights of Courtney Doofus.
To be fair, the legend of Shea Cooper will forever be that Rochdale game.
Yep. And we won't say much
Honestly,
more on that.
no. Courtney Duffus is Courtney Duffus is I saw his name the other day actually. Is he I think he's dropped at least a division, potentially two.
Doofus, oh yeah, he plummeted.
Yeah.
I mean, after being at Pools, you can understand why. Was he at Macclesfield somewhere like that?
Yeah, it might be, I think it might be like step 7 or something like that. But I mean,
Obviously,
that tells you something. Courtney
Bielly cracked
Senior,
that
I
season.
remember.
Obviously,
That's coming to my head.
there was obviously Chris Rea that season, Jake Hasty.
See, Chris Ray is. I'm not saying he's another one that's basically gone off to be prolific elsewhere, but I mean, he's gone to Tamworth and he looks suited to their system again.
And you just knew he was going to come on and score against us in typical.
Absolutely. We all
In
called it straight away. I mean, I'm looking forward to them coming back next month on a Tuesday night and do exactly the same again for some stupid reason.
oh, it's just the way it's going for Pools this season with the
The
amount of
one,
extra players.
yeah, the one benefit that we've got with that one is that there's no penalties this time,
Thank God.
unless Waterfall or someone else decides to snap one of their players in the box, which I wouldn't rule out. But yeah, I mean, usually with ratings of this sort, we'd end with rating the managers. But with Hartlepool United, that's a very dangerous task because they might not be here tomorrow. Especially given what Darren Sall did at the start of the season. Do I really need to ask you for a number on Darren Sall? Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. I mean, I mean, can we give him any higher than a 0? Really?
Oh, see, it's frustrating because the way we started the season defensively, we were superb.
You know what?
I
That
mean,
that is a very good point. To be fair, I mean,
the
up
only
until that
problem
walking game,
defensively superb. The only problem we were having for some reason, when you look at the astounding amount of quality that we had up front, we just weren't scoring goals, or we just weren't scoring enough. And you just felt like if we could just get everything to click and fall into place, that it would be the final piece of the jigsaw and that we could have a good season. But it just massively just, I don't know,
you know
it
what?
fell apart very, very, very quickly. And he, I don't think it helped his case when you look back. Yes, but on the pitch, it wasn't going well. We were in a really, really awful patch of form, but I think his presence off the pitch when dealing with the media, I think massively hindered him. When you're coming out calling fans clever dicks, you're making all these little snide remarks. At that point, you should be doing what you can to rally support. You need people behind you. You need to be doing what you're doing to sell yourself. And he wasn't. I think a lot of his own downfall was self-inflicted when you listen to the way he spoke. And for me, I just massively fell out of love with him. I did, and I went to Brackley for the replay, and for me, that was it. I'd saw enough, and thankfully, like you said, a couple of days later, it was brought to an end. But a 3 or a 4 for Darren Sal, if I'm being nice.
Yeah, to be fair, I think given the, his start to the season until that walking game, you have made a good point there. It was very good. I mean, I made the point, and hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. We all know that. I made the point after he was gone that being very defensive is all well and good, and obviously it does win. It can get you points, but the minute that goes and you still can't score, you're in trouble
Yeah.
because the style of play may be terrible and it may switch people off, but at the end of the day, if you're winning games, and this is just my opinion, because there will be people who want to go to football to watch, 5-0 every week. In my opinion, if you're winning 1-0 every week with terrible football, I don't care, especially in this division, because we need to get out of this division. If we're winning, I don't care what we play. As soon as you stop winning and start conceding goals, you're done.
Yeah.
I think that game, and again, I wasn't there because, funnily enough, I was at the cricket at Durham and I couldn't get back in time because of the weather conditions. The game at home to Rochdale in September, where we lost 3-0,
Yeah.
that was the first time I think that we'd like really been beaten, like properly sort of hammered, if you like, because a lot of our defeats up to that point have been by 1 goal. I think pretty much all of them have been by 1 goal. I think a lot of people were willing to say, well, the football's terrible, but we're not getting hammered and we're in games. That game, I think, was the time where everyone thought it's not going to work. And I think from that point, he had a really big task on to try and get people back on side, and unfortunately, it just never happened.
No, I mean
Um,
a lot of people said they would have sacked him that night. I mean, obviously we lost to Woking 3-2. We drew the next two games 0-0,
yeah.
beat Boston 2-1, and we then lost at Ebbsfleet, and we all know where Ebbsfleet are in the
That
league.
Ebbsfleet defeat was horrific.
I was there. It was so bad, and
And that was actually on the topic of ex-players. Rakesh
yeah,
Bingham scored, didn't he?
he
Yeah.
did. We then obviously came back to the Vic. We lost 1-0. And then obviously it was a midweek game, so it was a quick turnaround. We lost 3-0. We then went to Forest Green and lost 1-0. I didn't think we were too bad, but obviously they were by far the superior team. We then had that ridiculous game, obviously at home to Sutton, where again,
Manny D saved his job for another 2 weeks.
we very quickly went 2-0 down inside the first half. Tempers, obviously the temper inside the ground fractured, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we saved his job for another week. And then obviously it was the back-to-back games against Brackley, which ultimately cost him
And
his
that did
job.
him. Yeah. Straight. I mean, it's one of those. Like I say, it's one of those where like that one defeat, even just one defeat, can really do for you because that I think that game against Rochdale, every game up to that point we've been in, and
Yeah,
then like a hammering like that can hammer home how bad the style of play can be when you're not winning. And another point on that Dagenham Redbridge one you mentioned, the one after
you murder.
yeah, that was Umari, yeah. He's another one actually. Again, who's probably suited better to another side, but honestly, it's a depressing thing. Also, there's another point to be made as well that you gave Greg Sloggett a 1 and you're giving Daryl Sal a 3. Not putting words into your mouth, but
Yeah.
I mean, oh, yeah. I'm not saying any more on that, but I just thought that I'd drop that little grenade in there as well. For Greg Slockett, who may well be listening, you never know. But
Sorry,
lastly,
Greg.
we've mentioned Dan Sal. We'll mention Lenny Lawrence as well because it's only fair he has took over. And I think it is also fair to mention the other two involved in that management team as well, because it's quite clear that Anthony Limbrick and Gavin Skelton are very, very active on the training pitch, and they
Yeah.
do seem to be making a very, very big difference to that side.
I mean, credit where credit is due to all three of them because I'd imagine after that Brackley defeat in midweek, their first session on the training ground must have been hard because the morale must have been low. There must have been a really, really like depleted squad. So the fact that they've been able to pick up this fractured squad and in my eyes, I think there was an immediate turnaround. Yeah, albeit the first game I think was Maidenhead away. We drew 0-0. I believe we got a draw at Altrincham as well, but two games that we didn't lose, and then it just quickly transpired into a good run of form. I mean, the only two games I've lost, albeit we went out in the cup. Forget about that. It's the FA Trophy. But if you're talking about the league, the bread and butter, the only two games that we've lost are York and Gateshead. Two teams who I think on the day were superior to us, were better than us. We didn't deserve to win either of them games. We've beat Oldham. Credit where credit's due. We're just, I don't know, like you said, there's been a nice transition and everything at the moment seems to be positive. The players seem to be quite happy with the camp. There's reasons I think to believe, to be ambitious about the next couple of months, about where we could be.
I mean, we've spoken about the games come up before on the pod. We basically do it every week these days. But given that the Barnet game was postponed, the run of games that we've got now, certainly up until probably the end of February, because our first game in March is the 1st of March. That's against York. That is the first time, I think, up until that point, that we play a team, certainly in and above the playoffs. But I'd be very interested to know who our highest ranked team is up to that point. I think we don't play a team above us until that game. Because the highest ranked team that we play up to the end of February is Altrincham. They're a place below us. So up until the end of February, we don't play a team that is higher in the table than us. We have
I
to
think
take advantage of that.
so. If you look at the next one, two, three, oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would argue if you look at the next 8 games, obviously we don't know where the Barnet game will get rescheduled, and that's all.
That is true. That's a good point to point
If you
out,
forget
actually.
about the Barnet game, you look on paper at the next 8 games in the league.
Yep, that
I'm not
takes us
saying,
up the end of February. Yep,
yep, so that should be the Aldershot game away from home.
that's right. Yep. So I've got.
I'm not saying we'll win them all, but I think there's an argument to be made why Pools should not be unbeaten come the end of that run.
Oh, we have to be on. But there's no reason why we should be losing any of those games.
I don't see a game there where I look at and go, we will lose that. I think Wilson, no disrespect, you've got to go down there and beat
Yep.
Wilson. I think we should beat Woking, beat Braintree. I mean, Sutton's always a tough game.
I was
We
gonna say the one game that stands out to me, not necessarily because they're like in good form, etc., but the one game is always Sutton because we always
Yeah.
struggle at Sutton. Always.
I think with Sutton, I don't think it matters who the manager is. They never seem to deter. You always get the same Sutton United. Always a tough
Yeah.
game, physical, tall team. You take away from home, you take a point. I think we should
After
beat
that,
that.
there's 3 home games in a week. We have to win
Well,
them all, in my
well, I'm
opinion.
not
If we
saying
have,
Tamworth at home, Maidenhead at home, Altrincham at home. There's no reason not to get 9 points. At the very least, I think you should be getting at least 7.
I think arguably we should be beating Aldershot as well. Arguably.
When you should be beating Aldershot. So I'd like to think come 5 o'clock on the 22nd of the second, I'd like to think we're still unbeaten after 7, 8 games.
Yeah, I think if of 1 loss in 8, I think if we get beat by Sutton, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't be disappointed, but I think given our history with Sutton, it's one of those where you always have a bogey team, and unfortunately, Sutton's our bogey team. So if we get beat by Sutton, as long as we stay unbeaten in the rest and get as many points as we can, I mean, realistically, we should be looking at least 20 out of 24. And that's not arrogance. That's just if we want to be in the playoffs, we need to take advantage of that run.
Without doubt, you do what you've got to do, and this is what you've got to do if you have true aspirations and desires to be wanting to be in the playoffs and challenging to be back in the EFL. You do what you've got to do, beat the teams that you've got to beat. If you beat those teams, then it allows you to maybe go to Sutton, get a point, maybe come back to Altrincham at home, get a point. Just beat the teams you need to be beaten.
Because I think once we get to April,
It's a tough run in.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'd have said Ebbsfleet was a nice game to have, but given what happened away from home against Ebbsfleet, I wouldn't take that for granted either. But then after that, you're looking at Dagenham away, Oldham away, Gateshead at home, Rochdale away, and then Forest Green at home. That is a horrible, horrible end to the season. So
And
we
it
need
will.
as many points,
Hmm.
especially in this run, but we need as many points before that as we can.
I mean, it will be interesting if we're needing to take wins from them games from April to get into the playoffs. I mean, you've named the teams you've got to play. I mean,
Theoretically, we could play all of those teams in the playoffs anyway.
yeah, could
Like,
be
we
a bit
could end
of.
up sort of having to go to Oldham and having to go to Rochdale and playing Gateshead, playing Forest Green. It could well be one of those ends to the season.
It could. It could. This is where psychology could come in. Obviously having playing them so soon before the playoffs. It'll be interesting. It'll be a very interesting final run in.
Indeed, it will. Thank you very much, Adam. I think it was worth the third time lucky in the end.
Yeah.
It'll be very good. This will go out later on today, as you will all know, because obviously you'll be listening to this. And we will be back again in the coming week. I've received a very interesting message in the last hour, so that should be a very good thing, hopefully on Thursday that I'm scheduling. But yes, thank you very much, everyone, and we will be back sooner rather than later. And thank you very much again to Adam for his time. Cheers, Adam.
No, thank you, Jack. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.